Ebola was named after the Ebola River in Zaire, where it first emerged as an endemic in 1976, infecting over 600 people. It is an infectious disease spread easily throughout the continent of Africa, as well as a vector disease, carried mainly in bats. The most recent outbreak occurred in 2014 and is the biggest one since its discovery. This outbreak was found mainly in the countries of Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone. It was traced back to a 2-year-old child in Guinea, known as Patient Zero. His illness caused an epidemic, spreading through the region and into the countries of Liberia and Guinea. People believed that deforestation played into this, because it brought humans into contact with bats. In 2015, Ebola became a pandemic, with 4 cases in the United States.
Ebola is a difficult disease to contain and treat, especially due to the religion and culture of the West African region. Most communities in Africa believe in afterlife, meaning cultural traits such as funerals and burials are very significant. One of the main performed rituals in burial is cleansing the deceased body, which contributes to the spread of Ebola through contagious diffusion. Another cultural custom of this community is washing their hands in a common bowl during burial, in which they also wash the face of the deceased. The monotheistic religions of Christianity and Islam are also found through West Africa, and they believe that people who are infected are being punished for their sins and shouldn't be treated.
About 75% of people who contract Ebola are women. This is not due to different bodily capacities, but instead on social roles imposed on women. Guinea ranks 122 out of 144 countries listed on the Gender Inequality Index. Liberia is 144, and Sierra Leone is not even listed. Women in these areas are primarily expected to be nurses and mothers. Nurses get much exposure to the disease, as they are the people who tend to those infected. Mothers also take care of infected children, and pregnant women are more susceptible. Additionally, women are typically the people who trade at the weekly markets. Not only do they trade supplies, but diseases as well. This is another of the many ways cultural traits like market trading add to the spread of this disease.
Consequences of Ebola in the world include death and economic collapse. In the impoverished area of West Africa, the Ebola outbreak only created more poverty. With the unattractive image of death it brought with it, businesses began to lose customers, the area lost tourism, and in specific, countries such as Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone lost GDP. Observing the chart, it can be seen that Sierra Leone lost a significant amount of money around 2014, when the Ebola outbreak hit. As the crisis worsened, schools in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea had to shut down. This made an entire generation lose vital education, lowering the literacy rates and overall human development index of the countries. According to the UN Development Group, West Africa could lose up to $3.6 billion between 2014 and 2017 due to a decrease in trade, closed borders, and overall cutoff from globalization attempts.
The 3 main countries that are affected by Ebola are Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. The agricultural leader of Sierra Leone said that the disease has deflated the country's economy by 30%. This country, as well as Guinea and Liberia, are in stage 2 of the demographic transition model, meaning they are mainly agriculture-based. Sierra Leone has over 66% of their population devoted to the primary economic activities of the country's economy. In Guinea and Liberia, economic activity is not as drastically impacted, although Guinea's GDP is predicted to go down from 4.5% to 3.5%. Being a periphery country in the Waterstone's world systems theory and a less developed country, the economy is already struggling and the disease is only making it worse.
Ebola has contributed to raising the infant mortality rate and the crude death rate of these countries, while also lowering the crude birth rate and overall life expectancy. Between the 3 countries, the average life expectancy is 57 years old. The infant mortality rate has gone up in West Africa due to Ebola spread in orphanages. More than 30,000 orphans in West Africa contracted Ebola because of the close proximity they are in with each other. The birth rate has lowered as women are encouraged to put off or prolong having children due to the virus and pregnancy complications it brings. Also, these countries are still in the age of infection and famine of the epidemiological transition model, meaning that mortality is very high and fluctuating.
Supranational organizations such as the World Health Organization and the United Nations have been fighting against Ebola through ideas such as the UN Millennium Development Goals, which seek to combat infectious diseases like Ebola. In 2015, the United Kingdom sent 750 military personnel into Sierra Leone in order to combat Ebola, and the United States pledged to build 18 treatment centers in order to help the patients turned away due to lack of resources.
It is believed that the threat of Ebola is going down and will continue to go down in the future. Decontamination, quarantine, and medicine are all needed to bring a patient back to health. UNICEF has played a large role in the prevention and eradication of this virus, working with both conventional doctors and traditional healers to find a way to combat it. Taking cultural values into mind, this international organization has gotten religious leaders and locals to raise awareness of this disease. Last year, UNICEF teamed up with several African American churches to provide hygiene kits to those struggling throughout Africa. Non-governmental organizations work alongside UNICEF to help the cause.
Infectious disease specialist Dr. Pritish Tosh of Mayo Clinic stated that in order to eradicate Ebola or prevent any more outbreaks, work needs to be put into the infrastructure of developing countries. The health infrastructure needs to be advanced through improved sanitation and access to health care in countries such as those of Western Africa in order to prevent further damage by Ebola. Humans can take precautionary actions such as avoid known areas of outbreaks, follow proper sanitary procedures, and simple things like washing your hands.
By following these actions and donating to the cause, you can help eradicate the deadly disease. It just takes a few simple steps.